Yeah, fashion onesie, but it's layered. Huh? Oh. No, I actually got this from eShakti. It's called eShakti. It's like just a clothing, like an online clothing place, but they actually will alter it for you. It's kind of amazing. Yeah, eShakti. Before you order, let me know and I can bring you a coupon. And they also give the option of like when they do the coupon, they can like, you know, it's either like, oh, you get $25 off, Audra, or you can tip your tailors, which I thought was really cool. Yeah. Anyway, are you just creeping on Elizabeth? Get to your mat. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me for Pilates All Levels. My name is Audra, and today we're going to use a ball. If you don't have one, it's fine. Grab a pillow, fold it a couple times. You can also completely opt out of using a prop if you need to. As always, listen to your body. Don't do anything that doesn't feel right. And we're going to get started. Sound good? Great. Let's go ahead and actually get started on all fours today. And you can take your prop and pop it between your knees just to give your inner thighs a little support. And then if you don't like to be on your hands, you can always be on your forearms. And if you're okay with being on your hands, but after a second, your wrists don't love quadruped, you can always push more into your your pointer finger mound. Now, first, we're just going to lift everything to the sky, coming into a Halloween cat position, and just notice what parts of your spine you moved from. And then sink it the other way, and just see what parts of your spine you moved from. Just a couple more. A lot of times, our body loves to flex from our rib cage and loves to arch from the lower back, right? So as you do this, if you flex mostly from your rib cage, see if you can let your lower back come along for the ride. And if you flex primarily through your lower back, see if you can start letting your mid back come along for the ride. Last one like this. And then come back to your center, your neutral. We're going to try to find a little articulation. So imagine your tailbone melting down like Salvador Dali's clock. And then your hip bones lift to the sky a little bit. Your belly button lifts to the sky, your low ribs lift, your mid ribs, upper ribs, ears point down, you're looking at your knees. Now unwind it, widen through your sits bones. Let your hip bones start to drop down, then your belly button, then your lower ribs, drawing your shoulder blades down your back, spiraling your collarbones open, and just starting to look forward. Now, nod your chin, hollow out through the front of your body. We've gone the opposite direction. At the end, the tailbone melts down. And then shoulder blades draw down your back as you look forward, let your collarbones come forward, articulate the opposite way. Now we get to begin at the tailbone again. Melt it down, lift the hip bones, trying to do this without force. Just ease of motion. Unwind one more time from the tailbone. And then we get to do the opposite direction. Now this time we nod our chin, hollow out, pressing into the floor if you need to, and then allow the rest of your spine to respond. And then spiral those collarbones open as you start to look forward a little bit, letting the rest of your spine respond. Now curl your tailbone towards your face, press yourself into your child's pose, and feel free to roll out your wrists. Hands up and over to one side. Press your hips away, allowing that armpit to open. and breathe into the side that you're reaching away from. So the side you're pushing into, I want you to try to expand your ribs on that side as you inhale, and let everything condense as you exhale. One more. And then bring your hands up and over to the other side. Push the hips away. And breathe into the ribs that you are reaching away from. Couple breaths here. Come back to center and roll up. Now, if this is not a comfortable position for you, you don't have to be here. You can always sit cross-legged for a second. We're just going to see what our body says about rotation. So give yourself a little hug and just start to rotate to one direction. So see where you go. Just notice. Don't try to force it, and come back to center. Other side. Just notice. And then come back. Now, if one side was like, oh, what am I trying to do? See if you can let the muscles that wanted to help just relax a little bit and see where you go. Hey, Nancy, drop your left shoulder. Yeah, there you go. And then come back. And then other side, just see what's happening. Now, for example, some of us will have a lot of range rotating to one side and not very much range rotating to the other. So go to your first one. If you have a lot of range, you can just hold here. If you don't have much range, you can use your hands to give you a little bit of support. Just inhale. Exhale, just see if you can encourage a tiny bit more movement without force, using your breath. One more like this. Hold this position. Now lift your collarbones, come into a tiny bit of upper back extension. And then round your back, look down at your knee. And then come into a tiny bit of upper back extension. And then curl down. Two more. So we're getting a little bit of flexion and extension with rotation. Last one. Hold. Exhale, come back to center. And go to the other side and just see where you go, right? So on this side, I get kind of stuck. We inhale and just see if our nervous system will allow us to get a little bit more range. Doing this once again without force. We want to encourage the nervous system, make it feel safe and loved, because a safe nervous system is a happy nervous system. And then you can curl, get a little bit of an arch. And then round, look down at your knee. Lift your collarbones. Only go into a range that feels good for you. Couple more. We're trying to move relatively freely without too much muscular recruitment. That's for later. And two. Last one. Good, come back to center. And then we're just gonna see where we go now. So rotate to one side. A little bit farther. And then other side. A little bit farther. Great, let's go ahead and come on to our back. Go ahead and bring your prop with you. It can go in between your knees again. And just kind of see where your hips are, right? So if one is sinking and the other is lifting, see if you can just let the side that's sinking maybe have a little bit of support, and let the side that was elevating just melt into the mat. Now, let your knees go to one side gently. The hip will come along for the ride, but without an arch. It's kind of that maintaining neutral lower back. And then exhale, drag your legs back from the ribs, other side. Think about that hip pointing away rather than tailbone arching. And then exhale, drag it back from your waistline. One more like this each side. You can either be on your full foot, your toes, whatever feels good. And then if you're ready, you can bring your arms out to the side into a T or a goalpost position. Float your legs to your tabletop. Squeeze your heels together. Think about kind of knitting your ribs in, and we let one hip lift as the other hip lowers, and we hold. And squeeze the prop. And hold. And squeeze the prop again. Do you feel how as you squeeze the prop, your obliques kick on a little bit more? Yeah. 2 more. That's in an ideal world. And back. Hopefully you felt this at the front and not the back of your body. So if you feel, other side, if you feel it in the back of your body, you could be arching. So sink your ribs down and we hold and squeeze. And exhale. Keep the ribs gently drawing in and down as we squeeze the prop. And see if one side feels a little different than the other. One more, drag it back. And then you can go to the first side, hold, keeping those shoulders down. Maybe you extend your legs, maybe you don't. And bring it back, bend the knees, up and over, hold. Then maybe you extend. So we're trying to find an isometric contraction. So we hold. And then challenge that by lengthening our lever and come back. Bend, up and over, hold. Just hold, don't extend the legs yet. Then challenge it, right? So what we're trying to do is hold your end range with the knees bent to challenge where that is. And then we add a little bit of weight by straightening the legs. Last couple. How are these feeling, everybody? Great? Yeah. And yeah, we hold. And then we extend. Then we come back. And then we come up and over and we hold. We extend. We come back. Bend your knees, toe ball heel to the ground, making sure your toes are pointing forward here. And I do want you to kind of press your big toe mound into the ground and envision dragging your feet back towards your buns. Did you feel how your hamstrings just kicked on? Good. Now, hands can be by your sides. If you tend to internally rotate through your shoulder joint, you can always have that palm to the sky or palms facing each other. Press down into your big toe, press down into your hands, come up into your first bridge. Now, making sure that the weight is not on the neck, right? We're not lifting from our armpits. We're hollowing out from the front, throat relaxed. Press to get those hips elevated from the glute, from the hip joint, and then melt and roll slowly and with control, coming all the way to neutral, right? If neutral is comfortable for you. And then slowly let your lower back melt down, press into your big toe and peel your spine up. Did everybody feel that hamstring kick on more as they pressed into their big toe mound? Let's try it again if you're not sure. Right? So think about pushing and dragging as you start to peel. Good. 2 more. And last one. Not so much keeping the weight in the heels, right? It should be more about the forefoot here for today, right? And then melt and roll all the way down. Go ahead, interlace your hands behind your head. Support your head with your hands. Nod your chin a little. Spiral your elbows forward. Now, this is about the angle that will keep your elbows in today. Just curl forward. and see where you go. See where your body lifts from, and then slowly lengthen. This time, think of sinking everything down to the ground before you curl. And see if you got a little bit more abdominal recruitment. And then come down. And now this time, just envision coming up and over a beach ball and see what your body does. And then come all the way down. We're going to use whatever visualization you got the most out of. So whatever works best for you is what I would like you to think about. We're going to come all the way into that chest lift, sinking the ribs down, curling the collarbones forward. Now bring your hands forward, push them into an imaginary surface to get maybe a little bit more ab work. Hands come back behind your head and squeeze the prop and relax part way and squeeze the prop. A few more and see if you can maintain a relatively neutral spine here, right? Maintaining that chest lift, so we've got that nice abdominal contraction going on. See if you can deepen your abdominal contraction every time you squeeze the ball. 3, 2, last one, hold. Now we're gonna barely lift one shoulder blade off the ground and then let rotation happen from the rib cage. Come back, inhale, let the other one float and then rotate. If we just rotate, right, it's not a big deal. It's not the end of the world. But if we hover and then rotate, we get a little isometric contraction, and then we deepen the movement. We deepen the work, right? So let one hover and then rotate. How are these feeling, everybody? Yeah. Couple more. Trying to keep the opposite hip nice and heavy, lengthening through our spine as opposed to coming into a side bend. Last set. And come all the way down. Nice job. Go ahead, take your prop, and we want to kind of hug the armpits in for this. We're going to use the heel of our hands. So with feet down, this is what it looks like. And we're trying to find that serratus oblique connection. So think of the front of your armpits pressing and the fronts of your ribs sinking. And then you can go to the other side. If you feel your pecs kicking on, think of spiraling your arm the opposite direction. Now, if this is too easy, float the leg to tabletop. I actually get more out of this version. And just hold. Everybody feel how, even without the head elevated, that pressure into the leg and the leg pressure into the hands gets that whole torso to kind of kick on. Good. And then other side. That's actually one of the cool parts about our core. Its job, yes, flexion, extension, rotation, lateral flexion, all of that. But one of its main jobs is like transfer force. And then other side again. Just kind of feel what parts of your body are working. And one more. Now, if you'd like to stick with this version of it, stick with this version. Otherwise, both legs will come into tabletop. You'll press into both legs at the same time, push one foot away from you, and then float that leg in, switch legs. Now you can just tap the toe down if leg extension is too much of a challenge. If for any reason this doesn't feel okay on your hands, you can always flip your palms to face each other, have little blade hands. Couple more here. Last one. Now we're going to rotate a little bit. So much like at that beginning part where we hovered our shoulder, we're going to let it hover, press the opposite hand. You've got a little seat belt into the prop. And then other side. Once again, it's about that serratus and oblique working together. And then of course, you can extend that leg, opposite leg. If you're using a pillow instead of a ball and it's awkward, you can always just press your hand into your leg instead of keeping the prop. And then if you would like, whether you have your prop or not, you can always come into your chest lift, still use that same contraction, right? So if you're using your hand, you're using that serratus and oblique to press into the leg, but you're using that glute to press into your hand. So you don't necessarily move any of the parts extra, right? We're trying to find force here. And you can either use that hand or your prop. But if you can, please try finding that extra muscle work by kind of getting the muscles around surrounding joints to help. How's everyone doing? Good? Yeah. One more each side. Slow and steady wins the race today. And come back to center, head down, feet down. Now, we're going to slide our prop underneath our sacrum. So that sacrum is that triangular bone in between our cheeks. And once you get onto the prop, keep in mind, if you're using a ball or a pillow, whether the ball's super inflated or really deflated, it's just going to be a slightly different position. We're just going to try to find ribs sinking down a little, hip bones pulling towards each other, and a relatively neutral pelvic position. Bring one leg at a time to tabletop. Now squeeze your inner thighs together as if you're trying to pop a balloon. Now slowly let your toes point towards the ground. Their goal is not necessarily to get to the ground. Squeeze the inner thighs and let the knees float up. Now, if you have long limbs and a short torso, or you have really mobile hip flexors, or you're on a really deflated ball, you are more likely to be able to easily reach the floor, which is great. But also, if you're like me and you've got a longer torso and shorter limbs, or tighter hip flexors, maybe getting to the floor is going to make the ribs pop or the pelvis change shape. So don't worry if getting to the floor isn't where you are. Just hover above it. So we're finding our end range and we are pausing, right? We're not just dipping our toes in the water and jumping out. It's not ice cold. It's cool and comfortable. You dip your toes in, hang out for a second, and then you drag the knees back. Two more like that. Dip your toes in the water and hang out. And last one. Now extend one leg away from you, pushing it far, far away, and then see if like what your leg wants to do. So you've pushed your leg away, now kind of relax your leg and see if it can drop to the ground, but it stays straight, or it bends, and you can drag the leg back in, push the other foot away, Try to keep your hip bones still as you let the leg relax. So, things to think about. If you can get your leg down pretty far, but your knee does not want to bend, that could indicate that your quad is tight. If you can bend your knee, but your hip stays in a flexed position, that could indicate that your psoas or your TFL is tight. One more, it's just information, right? And then both feet come together. Now squeeze those heels together, press your feet away from you. You don't have to straighten your legs here. And then fold them in freely. Couple more, find your end range, hang out for a second, and bring it back. Think of those thigh bones connecting to your ribs. That is where we're stabilizing from, right? We've got that upper and lower body force transfer to last one, hold. Flex your feet, let the legs come up to the sky. Point the toes, press your feet down to where they just were. Flex and allow them to come up. Now, if that is a little too intense, bend the knees a little. That's okay. We have just a couple more here. 3. Allowing that hinge to happen at the hip joint, right? So we're not letting the ribs move, or even really the knees if we can help it. Go ahead, take the prop out from underneath your hips and roll back. Now, go ahead, keep your knees bent for a second. Bring your hands behind your thighs. Good. And then sneak your feet away from you if you need to. Inhale. Exhale, see if you can curl up just a little bit. Maybe you had to scoot your feet out a little, that's fine. Now, shoulder blades draw down your back. Curl your tailbone towards your face, start to roll back. Maybe your arms straighten, maybe they don't. And then roll forward and restack. Yeah. Now, when we restack, if we don't have a ton of range through our thoracic, right? A lot of times we tend to overuse our lower back. Instead, think of rooting through your sits bones, drawing your shoulder blades just down and ears come to the sky. Yeah. Good, better. Did that feel better? Good. 2 more. Good. Now, I have a really flat spine, which is what it is, right? It's not bad, it's not good, it's just different than somebody with a really rounded spine. So my stack might look different than your stack. That's fine. We're gonna hold this one out. Good. And just take that arm up and look at it as you rotate out and sweep it around. Other side, up, out, and around. Good. So we're trying to get a little bit of movement through our shoulder as well as our rib cage. Now, lift that shoulder, or lift your hand, lift your collarbones. So we just got a tiny bit of upper back extension, right? Up and around. Good. We got one more each side. Good. Last one like this. Coming back to center. Now you can hold onto your legs or not. You're going to curl back an inch. And curl back an inch. Curl back an inch. And come forward. Yeah. And we curl back an inch. That's why we're starting with hands on the thighs, right? Because they can be a guide. Yeah. And if you go a little too far and you're like, okay, I got back and now I can't get back up. That's fine. Roll up, come up however you need to. We have one more like this. Yeah. Elizabeth, when you come up, widen through your elbows. Yeah. Last one. And then we reach our arms forward. Shoulder blades gently comes out of the ears. We're not forcing them down. They're just not up. And as we roll, we're going to straighten our legs all the way down. We're coming into roll-ups. So if you need a prop for roll-ups, grab one. Otherwise, we're curling forward. Inhale, exhale, keep rolling forward. Hold on this first one. You can have your hands on your feet or your ankles. And we're just going to let everything kind of drop out of the ears, lift the ribs. Good. And then we're going to try to roll. So it's like you're being ironed out, right? Good. And then allow those armpits to open as the hands come overhead. Curl forward. Yeah. Yeah. Now, if roll-ups are really hard and you just can't get there, you have options. Maybe just bend your knees a fraction of an inch because maybe your hip flexors are tight. Or if that didn't help, bend them a little on your way down, straighten them on your way out. Maybe you put a pad underneath your back. Or maybe you come down and then you roll up. We get one more. And now take your prop and we're going to place it behind us when we come down into like this kind of easy, comfortable lounging position. Now, I personally, for this, like my ball mid-thoracic to lower thoracic, and it's totally up to you. So nod your chin first, like you're lifting your ears to the sky, and then let your collarbone start to rotate over the ball. Let your neck extend at the end, and let your lower back extend at the end, right? Only keep it in a range that feels good. And then sink your ribs down, belly button in, curl back up. Now, notice how you kind of knitted your ribs down towards your belly button. Try to maintain that as you lengthen back up and over the ball. And then curl forward. And then as you do this, if you want more challenge, get closer to your prop, right? So if the ball is pretty deflated, or if you're using a pillow, you might not get as much lift, you might not get as much extension, and that's okay, right? We're just trying to resist gravity on the way down, relax for a second, and then re-engage using your muscles to bring you from extension through neutral and then into your flexion, right? So we're trying to just find a larger range of motion here while also eccentrically working. It's so good, right? Now, hold up. We're going to rotate to one side, extend over the ball, come through center, rotate to the other side, come up and through center. Now, opposite way. Rotate, extend, around, and through. Good. We're trying to get some movement through our mid-thoracic, as well as using those abdominals on the way down, because we're still resisting gravity. And we are drawing that rib down to lift us up, and then we're rotating back to center. Then we rotate again, and then we resist gravity on the way down, come back through center and up. One more each direction. Last one. And come all the way upright. Nice job, you guys. Come on to all fours. How's everyone feeling? Great. Good. All right. So we're going to come into our quadruped. Once again, you can always, always, always come onto your forearms. Now, earlier we did rounding and extending. This time we're going to maintain a neutral spine for a second. Maintaining neutral, let your shoulder blades come together. We're sinking down and then push down into the ground, widening through your collarbones, lift everything up, maintaining neutral if you can. And again, sink everything down and then lift it back. Good. One more. And hold. Now, maintaining this, slide one foot out, push it into the floor or into the wall, and then fold it back. And then other side. Good. And then come back. Now, if as you push, you're in a plantar flexed position, see if you can press into your heel a little bit and find that dorsiflexed position, right? If you're like, what is she talking about? Plantar flexed, dorsiflexed. What we think of as a flexed ankle is called dorsiflexion, right? Like a dorsal fin. And the point is the plantar. So just think P for point, okay? And in. Last one, like this. Now both knees underneath you. Float one hand up and then bring it down. Push into the ground, find that shoulder stability as we float the other hand up. So it's like we're doing little kitty cat paws. And just feel what your body wants to do, right? If you have one side that's like, yeah, this is super easy, and one side that's like, use your breath. The other thing you can do is think about your glutes. So you're pressing your knees down and wide. Now, if this feels good and you would like more challenge, kitty cat paw as you push the other foot away. And then bring it in. Press down and out into the stabilizing knee. Now notice how I'm doing kitty cat paw when I press the foot away as opposed to reaching my hand away. It's a very different feeling because you're destabilizing yourself, but you're not matching the length of your lever, right? So if you try kitty cat paw and all of a sudden you feel like you're going to fall one way or the other, you can reach that other arm out if it feels appropriate. We're pushing the foot away from us rather than taking it to the sky. I personally find the extended arm easier than the extended leg in kitty cat paw. But that's just me. You could be the opposite. Last one. Good. Now, if you're ready, slide one foot out, other foot comes to meet. One long line from our ears to our tailbone, and then one more long line from our tailbone to our feet, right? So we don't have to try to be at an angle that gets our belly button to drop. Good. Knees down, press yourselves into your rest position. Roll out your wrists. And we're coming onto our forearm on our side to start. Now, if you've just sunk into this kind of like slumber party shoulder, push into the ground. We're going to extend one leg. Push it away from you so much that that hip drops, bottom rib lifts. Bring your top arm overhead. Now think about shortening the distance between your rib and your hip. You're going to bring that elbow towards your knee, hold. Still trying not to sink into that shoulder. So you've just found lift at the bottom and contraction at the top. Reach it away. Same thing, shorten and hold. Now, if you're here, with the knee towards the sky, that's no big deal. But if you start feeling that more in your TFL, like the front pocket of your hip, as opposed to your oblique, think about shortening here. The knee just comes along for the ride. It doesn't have to change positions. Last two. Good. Last one. Gorgeous. Extend that leg. You can either stay on your forearm if that feels good, or you can grab your prop and come all the way down. Think about your spine being nice and straight. So we're going to lift that bottom rib a little and push that top hip away from you. Now, just let that top leg lift and notice where it wants to go. If it's in front, think about pulling it back in space just a little bit, so it's at least in line, if not slightly behind. Start to paintbrush up the wall and then flex, squeegee it down. Paintbrush and push. Hey, Andrea, bring your heel back in space a bit for me. More. Yeah, keep it there if you can. Don't let it come forward when you lift. Think about pushing your heel towards the back wall. Yeah. Is that a little bit more glute? Good. Two more. Nice job, everybody. Last one. Now, rotating from your upper thigh bone, we're going to rotate our knee in, or internally rotate. So the knee points down, and just push that heel back in space. Squeeze like you're pushing it into a wall. I know we don't often work an internal rotation, so it might be a little weird. 3, 2, 1. Now, moving from the thigh bone, externally rotate. So if you can only go so far and you feel like your foot is having to drive it, only go as far as you can. Tiny little circles with that externally rotated thigh bone. Notice how, as it's externally rotated, as you drop it down and back, you might feel a lot of talking from here. That could indicate that that muscle is like neurologically dominant or tight. And then we reverse. Good. Try to keep the knee pointed slightly towards the sky as opposed to the foot pointing slightly towards the sky. 2, 1, bring both knees together. Now, keep your heels together, widen through your sits bones, rotate so your knee points towards the sky. Hold. And then slowly let it come down. And externally rotate. Now, if you go so far that your hip comes up with it, see if you can keep that knee right where it is, rotate your hips forward, and then try to match that position each time. If you can't get much rotation here, try coming into internal rotation first. We have 3. Resisting on the way down. Like I'm trying to push your knee down and you're going to let me, but not without some, effort. 2. Last one. And come all the way down. Other side. So go ahead. Find that push. So we're not in slumber party shoulder. Lifting your ribs. Extend top arm, top leg away from each other, right? Trying not to arch here. And then we are shortening that hip and rib as we pull it in, but still finding that muscle recruitment at the bottom and then extending. Good. Reach. How's this side feeling, everybody? Good? Yeah. A few more. And 2. And then come all the way down if you want to. You can always stay here if that's what your body would like to do. Otherwise, make sure that you're not just lengthening that hip away and keeping that rib on the ground. We want to lift the bottom side up so our spine is nice and straight. Now, check out where that foot is. If it's forward, drag it back. We push it away, we paintbrush it up, and then we squeegee it down. So if we think of squeegeeing it down, do you feel how your inner thigh kicks on more rather than just gravity? Right? Yeah. Just a few more. How's that feeling, everyone? Great. Good. Shouldn't be the hardest thing we've ever done. 3. Slow and steady wins the race. 2. Good. And then this time, we're going to let our thigh bone internally rotate. So our thigh bone lets the knee point down and just push the heel back into an imaginary wall. So it's internally rotated, but then it's coming into extension. Good. So you'll hopefully feel a different part of your glute kicking on to help stabilize you here. 4, 3, 2, knee points to the ground. Yeah, now rotating from the thigh bone, knee points to the sky, right? So once again, if you kind of get stuck and your foot is what's doing the work, see if you can just rotate from up higher and then bring it back. We're doing tiny little circles, trying to maintain that external rotation. 5, 4. Don't worry if your external rotation is different than mine. Everybody's body is put together a little different, right? And then reverse. Everybody's hip joints look different. So everybody's ability to rotate is going to be a little different. Also, some people are constantly standing, some people are constantly sitting. That changes things too. Last one, bring your knees together. Unwind your hips and just squeeze your heels together, rotate that knee up and see where it goes. Once again, if the hip bones move, try to bring it back forward and slowly rotate. And then again. And once again, maybe you can't get much range, and that's okay. If you are like, well, I'd like more range, see about coming into internal rotation first and see if that allows for more access of that glute for you. Still imagine I'm pushing you down and you're gonna let me, but you're still gonna resist. But we have just a couple more. 3, 2, last one. Slowly bring it all the way down. We're actually going to turn onto our back for a moment. And bring your fingertips towards the sky, arm bones relaxing down. Okay, now let one arm, one knee open. And then come back to center. Other side. Trying to keep the opposite hip down, right? So if that hip is lifting, don't go into too big of a range. Same side, because that's the challenge, right? Last one like this, each side. Now let both knees go to one side, opposite shoulder or opposite hand. So now you're getting rotation through your upper body, even though it's being initiated from your knees. Back to center, other side. You're gonna look at the hand that's opening. 2 more. Using those obliques to come back to center. Using those obliques to bring you back. If you feel your back doing the work, as opposed to your obliques, sink your ribs down more. Last one. Come back to center. Bring your hands forward, curl forward, float your knees towards your face. Yeah, and then slowly come down. See if you can tap your toes to the ground. Exhale, roll. It's like a little teaser prep. And then slowly extend. 2 more. If you need your whole foot to come down, that's okay. Last one. And we're coming all the way to standing. Now, just for fun, when we do our balance work today, we're actually going to do it with our toes on the mat, seeing if we can float our heels. If that is too much effort, you don't have to do it. You can just come onto the mat. Good. So float your heels off the ground. Yeah. Good. And it's not a huge move. It's just so they're not touching. Yeah. Keep them up. Good. And then look to one side. It's a whole new world, right? And then look to the other side. Yeah. Yeah. And back. And rotate. Good. Now, if you'd like more challenge, close one eye. And then close the other eye. Yeah. One more each side. And then come back to center. All right, nice job. We're gonna kick one toe behind us. We're just gonna sink slightly into our whole foot on one side. Make sure you're pushing through all of the corners of the foot if you can. And we're just gonna roll down, let your head be heavy, let your torso be heavy. We're kind of slouching down and then let everything dangle. Push down into the ground again, roll it up, let your head and arms dangle until the very end, and then switch legs. So just kickstand, bend the other knee. We're gonna roll, kind of slouch, see what our body does, see how it feels. Push down into the ground. Keep that knee bent if you can. Roll all the way up. Bring your feet together. Rotate your palms to the sky. Open your collarbones. Lift your heart. Bring your hands down. Slide your shoulders to your ears. Drop them straight down. Nice job, you guys. Give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you so much for joining me today. How did everything feel? Good. Good, good.